Look at your last grocery receipt. Whatever that number was, it climbed again this month. Not because of anything you did, because of a deadline most people have never heard of. On July 1st, 2026, 3 governments sit down to decide whether the trade deal that quietly keeps your food affordable stays alive. It is called the USMCA review, and almost no one shopping this week knows the clock is already running. This is not a rumor, and it is not a scare. It is a date on a federal calendar, written into the agreement itself under a clause called Article 34.7. 42% of every food and beverage import into this country comes from just 2 places, Mexico and Canada. Before we go further, a quick word about where you are. This is the Survival Research. If you're not subscribed yet, hit subscribe and the bell. This is where we dig into the systems that quietly decide what you pay. Here is what nobody at the checkout counter will tell you. Right now, most of that food crosses the border with 0 tariff. Roughly 63% of agricultural imports from those 2 countries enter duty-free. That single fact is the only reason your cart is not already worse. That arrangement is exactly what gets reviewed on July 1st. The duty-free access that holds your prices down is not guaranteed to survive the review. And here is the part they really do not advertise. A separate 10% surcharge on non-qualifying goods is scheduled to expire around July 24th. When it expires, the rules sitting underneath your grocery prices get rewritten inside the very same window. 2 pressure points, same 6 weeks, same 3 governments. 1 grocery bill, yours, caught in the middle. Stop here for a second, because this is the part that matters most. There are roughly 30 foods in this country with real, traceable exposure to what happens this summer. Some of them you import without ever realizing it. Coffee, cocoa, bananas. The continental climate cannot grow them, so the figure sits at nearly 100% imported. Others run 70 to 90% imported, like most of the seafood sitting in your freezer aisle. I built the entire breakdown into the Survival Research documentation. All 30 foods, the exact import exposure for each, the real shelf life of each one, and the order to buy them in so you spend the least for the most protection. The link is in the description, the first link. But stay right here, because the next part is where this gets concrete. Still watching? Then you already understand more about your own grocery bill than almost anyone in that store. Subscribe and share this with the one person who keeps promising they will start prepping next month. Everything I am breaking down lives inside the full documentation. One access. All of it. Permanently. The link is in the description. Now stay with me, because this is where it gets concrete, starting with the one food you already feel. Start with the one you already feel. Beef. The United States Department of Agriculture projects beef and veal prices climbing about 12% across 2026. That is one of the steepest forecasts for any food category this year. And here's the part that should change how you shop. That number is not mainly about tariffs. It is about the herd. The American cattle herd has been shrinking since 2019. Drought forced ranchers to cut their herds, and a smaller herd means tighter supply for years, not months. So this is a price that was already rising before the trade calendar ever entered the picture. The review only stacks pressure on top of pressure. The move on beef is simple. Canned beef, freeze-dried ground beef, shelf-stable bone broth. Bought now before the herd math fully reaches the shelf. Coffee, 100% imported. Already up close to 20% over the past year before any review touched it. A vacuum-sealed bag of whole bean coffee holds its quality for years. Green, unroasted beans hold far longer still. $3 to $4 a bag now buys you time the market will not hand you later. Cocoa is the same story written in a different aisle, imported entirely and already trading at record highs on the global market. Then canned goods, and here is the trick almost nobody connects. The tariff is not only on the food inside the can, it is on the can itself. Tariffs on imported steel raise the cost of the tin and the packaging. So the canned tomatoes, the canned beans, the canned fish, every one of them gets squeezed twice. Once on the contents, once on the steel. Buy those cans now, while last year's steel price is still baked into the shelf price. Fresh produce is the next layer. 55% of the fresh fruit in this country is imported. 32% of the fresh vegetables. Much of it comes north across the very border under review. You cannot stockpile a fresh tomato, but you can absolutely stockpile the shelf-stable version of everything that tomato turns into. Canned tomatoes, tomato paste, dehydrated vegetable blends, freeze-dried fruit. This is the produce aisle, frozen in time, captured before the tariff math arrives. Then there's the input almost nobody connects to food at all, fertilizer. This country imports about 95% of its potash. Nearly 90% of that single input comes from Canada. Potash is the foundation behind corn, soy, wheat, and rice. It is the chemistry underneath the entire grain supply. When the border rules around fertilizer shift, the price does not appear on a fertilizer label. It appears 12 to 18 months later on bread, on cereal, on everything built from grain. That delay is the lag the system quietly counts on. The cost moves in the spring. You feel it the following year, and you blame the wrong thing entirely. So the grain shelf matters right now, today. Rice, dried beans, rolled oats, flour stored cold, pasta. These are the cheapest calories per dollar you will ever buy, and the most exposed to a shock you will not see coming. Now let me be honest about what this is and what it is not. This matters more than any single food on the list. This is not a warning that the shelves go bare on July 1st. They will not. Nothing dramatic happens on that single day. What actually happens is slower and more expensive. The rules shift across the summer. Prices drift upward through the fall and into the year after. This is also not about hoarding, and it is not about fear. It is about timing a purchase you were already going to make and making it before the math turns against you. And to be completely clear, stockpiling does not replace an income. It does not replace a garden. It does not replace knowing how to actually cook what you store. What it replaces is paying next year's price for this year's groceries. Nothing more, nothing less. Here's the single pattern sitting under all 30 foods. Every one of them depends on a border staying open, a herd staying large, or a steel price staying flat. All three of those are under direct pressure in the exact same 6-week window this summer. The coffee, the beef, the canned goods, the grain. None of it is random or disconnected. It is one supply chain, reviewed on one calendar by the same 3 governments at the same table. And they are not hiding any of it. It is published. It is public. They are simply counting on you not reading it until the price has already moved. If this opened your eyes, subscribe and share it with someone who is still waiting for next month to arrive. So you are left with a choice, and it is a genuinely simple one. You can wait and let July 1st quietly decide what your grocery budget looks like for the next 16 years. Or you can build a shelf this month on this year's prices while the old rules are still holding. The deadline is real. The date is fixed. The only variable still left is whether you act before it or after it. The receipt was always going to climb. The difference is that now you know exactly when and exactly why. And now you can do something about it before the rest of the aisle even understands what is coming. The full 30 food breakdown is waiting in the description. The first link, get it now while the window is still open. Build the shelf while the door is still open. Your future self will read the receipt and thank you.